I'm going to throw in a couple here that I think we and you hear all the time as well. So sort of some general itinerary stuff. For someone who has 8 days in Greece and wants to see Athens and let's say 2 islands, standard traveler looking for a mix of beach, relaxing, and nightlife, but who don't want to be somewhere with only tourists. What do you think is a reasonable itinerary? So again, 8 days, Athens, 2 islands, and which are the ones that you'd go to?
Well, this it also depends if it's a guy like in the 30s or it's alone or traveling with friends. Then there are other islands. But a good starting point, if it's the first time, I don't know. Sometimes people coming from overseas, they do want to see Santorini, and Santorini, it's for sure, it's a unique island that I suggest to visit, but I suggest also not to spend too many days on Santorini. Santorini, it's fantastic, but it's also very crowded. But to see the uniqueness, I think 2 or 3 nights are basically 2 nights, 3 nights are fine, not longer. But for 8 days itinerary, assuming that you are arriving and departing from Athens, you would keep the first and the last night in Athens, and in the spare time you will visit Athens, because 8 days is not really a lot to see also 2 islands. And then you could do let's say you see a bigger island, which might be Naxos or Paros. They have everything. They have the beaches, they have the villages, they have the traditions, they have the food, and so on. And they are very well served in terms of ferries and also outside of the season to find everything, car rental and so on. And then let's speak about Naxos. You could go to one of the small Cyclades. There are 4 islands on the southern part of Naxos that are daily connection from Naxos, not from Athens, going there, like Iraklia, Skinusa, Kofounisia. They are very small, but especially outside of the peak season, they are probably the last resort to see how the island were also in the past, and very less tourists outside of the peak season. In the peak season, all the island have tourists. That's a fact, of course, more or less, but from mid-July till end of August, all the island are basically crowded in relation of their size and their, let's say, how they're famous.
So what would you do for the itinerary then? Let's say, so day 1 is Athens, then you're saying Naxos for a few days, and then is Santorini the one that you would actually pick for a first-time visitor?
Well, I mean, if it's coming from overseas, Santorini also offers an international airport. So you could start from Athens, have an overnight in Athens, and surely you will have the time to see the Acropolis, which is, I think, the thing that you have to do when you arrive in Athens. Everything started there, so you have to see this. And then the next day, you might take a very early ferry to Naxos, which is about 4.5 hours, 5 hours. But it's a very nice traveling also with it's a normal ferry. And then you might spend there 3 nights, and we have already 4 nights. And then if you want to go to a smaller island, like the ones I was mentioning before, then you can do it from Naxos, even 1 or 2 nights, and then coming back to Naxos, and depending on the ferry connection, going straight away to Santorini, and then from Santorini flying back to Athens. And this is, I mean, I prefer to travel by ferry, but if you have 8 days, sometimes you have to optimize the travel, the time on traveling.
Okay, perfect. So thinking about that, actually, from Catherine, we'll have 3 nights in Santorini. One day we'll take a catamaran sunset tour. Do we need a car, or should we be able to get around walking and taking taxis?
Well, in Santorini, I suggest you to use taxis. And in this case, I read today that Uber is working in Santorini from, well, this month or next month. So might be an interesting information. But it's not pleasant to drive in Santorini a car. Of course, it's not even this nightmare, but you have 3 nights. You might skip it, the driving, and just take taxis or transfer or buses. There are buses in Santorini. And if you have only 3 nights, okay, the catamaran sunset tour are fantastic, but make sure if you are also into hiking, to find out about it's a very, let's say, easy and a very small part. It's a moderate hiking between Ia, which is written Oie. It's the most famous village and the most famous sunset, basically, and Fira. And it's a walk all along the volcano.
You're pulling it up. You mentioned the buses. So do the buses run frequently? Is that actually like a pretty usable mode of transportation for getting around the whole island?
I mean, it depends where you're going, but yes, from Fira, which is the capital of the island, there are buses going to all the direction of like to the beaches and so on. I'm using the chat, and this is what I'm suggesting about the hiking I was speaking about in Santorini. So if someone is interested, it's a very brief description just to give, and then you might find out more. But from Fira, the buses are going to Ia, to the beaches and so on. And let me tell you, the beaches in Santorini are fine to have a swim, but are not the best beaches in Greece. I mean, they are dark, hot, because there's black stones and the water is dark and it's going deep very quickly. So not really nice for small kids. And Santorini, it's fantastic, but not for the beaches. It's for the surrounding, the nature, and the volcanic feeling. Sorry, and this is my point. I'm always telling people that having a conversation with me, stop me, because I tend to speak and talk and talk and talk. The conversation is basically for you that have questions. So if you see that I've already answered the question, I'm just talking and talking and talk, stop me and ask your next question.
Duly noted. So thinking about that, next question. We're planning on a day trip to Delphi while in Athens. Is it a good idea?
Okay. Well, yes, if you don't have much time, it's fine. I mean, it will be a day trip, and you will spend in Delphi, let's say, not more than 4.5, 5 hours, but it's fine. I mean, Delphi itself, the village next to the archaeological site, is nothing special, but the archaeological site is definitely worth. So do it in 1 day, unless you are doing a on the road trip, and then you might stop there and be more relaxed. But if you have a few days, do it in a 1 day trip from Athens.
Okay, meeting up once, and this could be more generalized, but let's keep it first specific.
Well, if it's coming from Milan, probably you will be able to find a direct flight to Santorini, because it's an international airport, and there are enough from Milan or Bergamo, which is Milan, Bergamo. I mean, there are a couple of airports around Milan. So it could be a easiest solution. Then from Paros to Santorini, it's I think there are at least 2 ferry a day, and very nice ferries. It's a 3 hours trip, easy to reach. Sorry. And I think the easiest thing is that your son is flying into Santorini if he doesn't have a lot of time, and then you both meet there, and indeed you will love the hike from Ia to Fira. That's I'm sure. Sorry.
But here, I'll get these to you. So the 2 next ones are about, I'm certain he and I want to go to Milos and Sifnos. So what do you think? What sort of an itinerary with some specific activities, experiences that you'd recommend for Milos and Sifnos?
Well, Milos and Sifnos basically is my home yard. I mean, my wife is from Sifnos, but also half from Milos. Let's say both islands Milos is famous for the amount of beaches, which is incredible. There are more than 90 different beaches, and indeed not only sandy beaches, rocky beaches, and colored beaches like the red beaches and so on. In Milos, it's also a volcanic island, and that something is also has something in common with Santorini, but at the same time it's different. But if you're going to Milos, you should do a tour of the island by boat, and there are different boats offering, from the smaller one, from sailing boats, catamaran, or ancient vessels, but of course on
Is there one that you recommend, a particular boat trip?
well, the one I do love is the Thalasitra. Thalasitra. This is sorry, it's my Thalasitra. And you keep this name, and you will ask at the port of Adamantas. They are both names. It's the same. Adamas y Adamantas. It's the same. It's an ancient vessel. They do a fantastic tour. They are very passionate about what they are doing, and they also cook because it's a one-day trip basically all around the island. And they cook it on the boat. I mean, it's not the smallest boat. It means you will have people with you. I mean, if it's out of season, it's end of June, I guess 50 people might be there, but it's a big boat, but it's really worth. Of course, you will find smaller boat if you prefer, and also private if you prefer to be private. But this one is the one I love, and I mean, I've been there with many groups with them, and everyone was always, and Italians are very difficult with food, and they were enthusiastic with the food.
So thinking about sort of staying outside, particularly since this is an active question, could you recommend a couple specific beaches in Milos?
Well, yes, of course, in Milos, you have beaches on all these sides, north, south, in the middle, there is a bay, and it depends on the wind. But there are beaches for swimming as well, and beaches for, of course, swimming, but also just to see. The first one, the most famous, is Sarakinico, and it's kind of a moon landscape. It's a white, it's a rock basically. It's a soft rock, and soft, so it was basically shaped by the wind, by the waves, and by the weather, and it's fantastic. I mean, and it's worth going there. You will find a couple of spots where you can dive into the water or just enter smoothly to have a swim. Of course, it's better to swim there if there is no wind from the north. If it's the wind from the north, go to see the beach, but have a look how's the water before entering.
Any restaurant recommendations for Athens? We're staying near, I'm going to get this name wrong.
Syntagma. I've seen the place of the Constitution. Except, yes, I mean, you will find so many restaurants, and I will give you a couple of names. Those are places where I am going. Well, not for work, but I'm going with my family and with my parents, where they are coming from Italy, because I love the people, I love the food, and it's in the city center in Plaka. I can post a link as well. I only have to find it because I have to spring from Milos to Athens in my notes, so I have to find them. And I mean, this is it's a traditional taverna, so it's easy. There are cooked dishes. I love the eggplants in oven. I mean, I love eggplants in any form, and eggplants in oven over there, very simple, beautiful tomato sauce and a bit of feta cheese on top. So and onions. Sounds simple, so it's fantastic. Beside of this, I mean, they have many more plates, and but eggplants is my I don't know, it's my Achilles
Your favorite.
thirst, yeah.
What,
And
a couple others that you'd recommend?
yes, and different, because just to give you, because there are tavernas, then they are more sophisticated restaurants, or also mesodopolio. Mesodopolio, it means like, it's like to say it in Spanish, like tapas. You order many small plates, so you try different things. And but one more great and small and not really easy to find. I mean, it's easy to find with Google Maps and if you know where to go. And it's in the center, but kind of hidden. And you wouldn't think there is a fish. Mesodopolio, basically, they are making small plates, but also fresh fish, depending. You wouldn't think there is a fish place, and it's one of the best fish places in Greece, in my opinion. Anyway, in Athens, you will find every day very fresh fish, even if it's, I mean, it's on the sea. And one other very nice place where also a lot of Athenians are going, and very near to Syntagma, where it's Kiki de Grèce, and it's also there's a French touch, but basically it's a small wine bar offering a couple of plates paired with the wines, and they also are very helpful, asking what kind of wine are you looking for, and what could you eat, or the other way around, what would you eat, and what wine it's best pair to it. And very near to Syntagma. It's all of three are Greek cuisine, but three different styles.
Awesome. So thinking about restaurants, actually, let's stay with that theme. What's, I guess there's a million that you could ask for this, but the first, you mentioned a taverna. So are there different, what's a taverna? And then are there different names and different types of restaurants in Greece categorized by that name or style?
Yeah, the taverna maybe is the most common, and they have for sure a lot of baked plates. What does it mean? In the morning, they prepare like moussaka, pasticcio, and giant beans. And there are plates, basically, they are ready for the day. And they, of course, they bring it to you warm and so on. But it's not done in this moment when you're ordering. And sometimes you see on the list gemista, which is stuffed tomatoes or peppers, and then you say, okay, I would like this one, and they say, oh, it's over because we just made a. And the taverna, basically, you will find this kind of traditional dishes, and they have also normally a small part of the cart with this with a grill, so it's a meat and different stuff. Then you have the street food, fast food, the Greek fast food, which is the souvlaki or gyros and so on, where you basically will find Greek salad and yes, souvlaki, which is a pork or a chicken or sorry, sheep. Well, sheep is lately it's very rare, but mainly it's beef, pork, chicken and beef skewers into a bread with a sauce, and it's very cheap, very nice also to eat, and it's quick. So in 20 minutes, if you are on the rush, you're fine. Well, I'm not for rushing things, but if you need to rush, it's a fine solution. Then you will find mesodopolia, which is the one I was telling before, that I mean, there are smaller plates. They might be fishes or sausages and cheeses that have been baked or fried, and so the salads, different salad, hummus, and so on. And you normally you just pick, well, a couple depending on how people are on the table. But it's the nice thing of sharing, because the Greeks also in the taverna, if they're taking a moussaka, we are 4 people. Okay, we take a moussaka, a pasticcio, and beeftekia, and the eggplant, and then we put everything in the middle, and then we share. And the same is in Mesotopolio. It's even easier because there are smaller tapas, and so you can try many more, and then you share with your company.
So what is tipping culture like at restaurants in Greece? What's like expected? And then the second one after that is, what are the times for this? When do people eat lunch? When do people eat dinner? If you show up at 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock PM for dinner, are you going to get laughed out the door?
Well, this is a good point. The second part, the first part, sorry, I forgot about the first
Tipping.
part of the
So what is the tipping culture like?
Tipping. I mean, if nothing, it's you don't have to do anything, but 10% is normally okay, and or even less if you round it up. I mean, of course, if you spent a nice evening, you are happy and so on, of course they are happy, but 10%, 15, if you're a big company, whatever, it's fine. But the other question is also basically the Greeks eat at any time. On like holidays or bank holidays, you will find Greek maids at 6, and they are not having dinner, they are still having lunch. But sometimes you're seeing a taverna at 8:30 and it's empty, and you think, well, 8:30, the taverna is empty, maybe it's not that. But the Greeks, especially from now till October, they don't go early for dinner. I mean, normally they start at 9:30, 10, and during holidays it's kind of often they're going at 11, 11:30, and then just spend all the night over there. So if you see a taverna, especially early in the night, like until 9 o'clock, kind of empty, it doesn't mean that it's not popular. This is about the times. But on the other hand, you can eat at any time. In Italy, normally they close, just to make a reference, because I'm Italian, this was for me always like, in Italy you can eat for lunch between 12 and 2:30 in the afternoon, but then you have to stop until 7 and then you cannot find a restaurant open normally. In Greece they open at 12, and it's open end, especially in summer. So this is
set times, but you can also go when you want. Yeah, okay. Changing up gears, let's bounce back to sort of island hopping. Is there a particular ferry? I'm going to do another two-part. Is there a particular ferry company that you recommend? And then for people traveling by ferry, what's the stuff to be aware of? Just thinking of like schedules and getting between islands.
Well, there are two things. There is not a company I can suggest. Basically, you have to check what is available among the island, and I'm sending a nice link where you can find all the ferry connection and also see a island hopping itinerary and the prices of all the companies they are online. A couple of suggestions. First, if I'm looking right now, which is May 26th for September, and I only find or I don't find any connection, but I know there is a connection. Sometimes they are very late to publish their schedule. Even if I'm looking for a specific company, which is the slow ferry going to Sifno, it's the Zante Ferries is the company, and the Solomos, it's called the ferry. If I'm looking right now for this boat in September, I won't see any schedule, but it doesn't mean the point is they will release the schedule in July probably. So sometimes of course you have to, it's a bit of tricky, but this site helps you. And what you have to keep in mind, if you are traveling or you're flying out from Athens and you're coming from an island, even if you plan half a day difference. Let's say you found a ferry that leaves from the island at 10 and arrives at Piraeus at 2 in the afternoon, and your flight it's at 6:30. It might sound fantastic and easy, and there's enough time, but there might be delay on the ferry. There might be a lot of wind, and it happens at least 2 days every summer. It happens that for half a day or 1 day, the boats or the ferries are not allowed to travel because it's too windy and there are too much waves. So my suggestion is to keep, I mean, if someone needs to go back, if someone want to miss the plane and tell home, oh, I missed the plane, I live in Greece, well, you're welcome. And but if you have to go back, basically keep a cushion. And to be sure, it's, unless the flight is at 12 in the night, be sure to be one night before on the plane in the city where you're flying out. I think this is my biggest suggestion about the ferries. Don't keep the things too tight. Of course.
I was going to say, thinking about that, if I imagine the ferry schedules change. So during high season, are there far more trips? And then if someone's planning a trip either earlier or later in the off season, should people expect travel to look very different, like the availability of ferries?
Oh, for sure. You will already in September, there are a lot of ferries, but not as many as in August. But if we roughly said, you can easily travel in Greece. With easily, I mean, you will have at least one daily connection from April till the end of October. The difficult months are November, December, until March. And this affects basically smaller islands. Bigger island as Naxos, Paros, as almost also during the winter daily connections. But yes, I mean, in the winter, if someone is really fond to go visiting the islands in winter, well, you have to see how many connections, when they are, and in winter it's even easier that for a couple of days you cannot, or the ferry boats are not traveling, and then you might stuck on an island. I mean, it happens. But if someone is traveling in winter, I think he also wants to see this.
Are there places, particular islands that you would recommend for people with kids?
Well, yes.
That you wouldn't recommend also.
I would. Well, of course, if you are with kids, you probably, I mean, you wouldn't go to, it depends on the age of the kids, but in Mykonos, it's not even Greece anymore. The scenery is it's beautiful, but it's international. It's an international destination, and it might be useful because they have also an international airport. Or if you're really into Mykonos, I mean, the town is fantastic, but there are other prices on the other islands and so on. Of course, if you're looking for this, it's the right island, but not for kids. For kids, Sifnos is a very good island, not because I'm from Sifnos, but because the beaches are very easy also for the kids. They are sandy beaches, and all of them are entering the water quite slowly, and they are repaired during when it's too windy. Well, if it's too windy, it's too windy for everyone. In every village there is a small playground, and there are bus connections, public buses, or by car. The distances are not too big. I mean, you're not traveling longer than 40 minutes if you're doing the longest trip on the island. So short distances, very nice villages to have a walk and to have a lunch and dinner. Many activities for kids as well. Like I was before I was asked about Milos and Sifnos, and then I spoke about Milos, but not about Sifnos. Sifnos is also famous for their pottery tradition, and it's not an artistic pottery. Basically, it was a pottery for the all-day use, so like yes, pots or plates and cups and so on. And of course, nowadays they are doing a bit more artistic, but the tradition is going on. And you will find small workshops for kids where they can draw their own schemes on the plates, and then they cook the plates. So the plate is indeed, it's fine it's a finished plate with your drawing on it. Or you can go to a small local farm with goats, and if you're lucky, you will be able to see how the goat cheese is made, and which is a daily. They are doing everyday goat cheese, and you can hike with the kids as well. I mean, if they are grown up, but they are very easy hike as well. Surely also Naxos is a very good solution. It's a bit bigger island, but especially if you want more relaxed, being on most of the time on the beaches. There is next to the old city of Naxos, there is a very, it's not the most beautiful beach of Naxos, but it's a very useful beach for kids. So when in the morning you just go to the beach before having a tour on the island, or going to the beaches that are further and that are nicer. But so, I mean, my experience with kids is, especially with my son, which is 2.5 years. So I'm not speaking about kids which are 18 years old, but I mean, until 12, 15 years, I think it's this kind of.
Okay, perfect. This is changing gears totally, but are there any, like cultural particularities that people should be aware of? I mean, that's sort of a vague question, but is there stuff with salutations, I don't know, interactions? Is there anything that's very specific to Greece that's like important to know?
Well, probably something that at the beginning, as I came to Greece, it was I thought they are indiscreet, and they are asking you a lot of private questions, but it's not mean, it's not gossiping, but this was the tradition. How old are you? Are you married? Do you have children? I mean, it's not, they are not asking because it's you. They are asking almost anyone they meet for the first time. It's the first three questions. Are you married? Yes, no. And then the second question, if you're married, where are the children? Yes, no. But so this is not to be indiscreet, but they just do it with everyone. Well, also talking about dinner and eating and so on. The Greeks are used to share what they eat. So if you are eating on a table with Greeks, it's normal that they ask you or put it in the middle, and we take everyone from the same plates and so on, just to keep it. And I'm thinking about the other. Probably I became too much Greek and I cannot see them anymore.
Just to answer the second part of the question there, and sorry if I missed it, is there good hiking there, Antinos? Or let's say, I mean, separate from that, are there other islands for folks who love, because I think Chris mentioned hiking before. So one is, does Tinos have hiking? And then two, for people who really love the outdoors and hiking, what are some of the islands that you'd recommend?
Well, Kythira, which is this, it's not Cyclades, it's next to the Peloponnese, might not be the
on the mainland. What's everyone always talks about Athens and the islands, but on the mainland, what would you recommend for a couple of days for someone who's got a bit more time?
I mean, for a couple of days, especially if they are based in Athens, and I would go to the Peloponnese. I mean, once you're outside of Athens, it's very pleasant to drive in Greece. Inside of Athens might be a bit chaotic, but as soon as you're out, it's nice. Not too much traffic and so on. Mostly new roads and so on. But especially you could do a tour which is a mix between culture and relax, like visiting important archaeological sites. I mean, I don't remember, sorry, who was mentioning Delphi, but Delphi might go also on a different itinerary, but for a couple of days, like let's say 3 nights or 5 nights, I would spend it on the Peloponnese, like
Actually, Luca, one thing to clarify for anyone who doesn't know, what is the Peloponnese?
yes, you're right. The Peloponnese is a peninsula, basically, and it's on the. I'm trying to do it on the right view on Google Maps. So, but it's southwestern from Athens, and it's driving distance is about at the beginning of Peloponnese. Let's say it's 1 hour, and maybe it's famous. I guess it is. It's the Channel of Corinth, which is an artificial channel that connects 2 different seas, and one it was before the Suez Channel in Egypt. So it's and it's also something that needs to be seen. I mean, it's and it's on the way. You can just stop over. But yes, a quick itinerary for a couple of days might be from Athens on the way to Nafplio, which is the destination. It's a very small, nice historical town in the Peloponnese, in a very nice bay with a beautiful fortress on top. And the city has a long history, and along Venetian traditions and Turkish traditions. So that's something. Everything is mixed up. And it's a good destination to have day trips to the theater of Epidaurus or Mykines, which are Mykines is one of the most
Sorry to
ancient.
interrupt you. Catherine asked, what was the town's name?
You're right. Nafplio, because it's written and spoken in so many. I'm just sending the link and writing the name. And I mean, it's small, but it's beautiful, and especially after a day of touring on archaeological sites, there is a fantastic historical center, which can be quiet. There is a couple of squares which is very lively with a lot of kids playing on the square, so a bit. It reminds me on a bit of Italy many years ago, and even Greece many years ago, and from there you can just go to the eastern part. If you've seen the map, there is Porto Heli, and or you can do a 1-day trip to Hydra or Spetses, which are smaller islands nearer to Athens and Peloponnese. I mean, you can see. I mean, it's difficult now to just compress just a few things in a few minutes. I mean, that's why a conversation is the best thing. When I'm able to be prepared a bit, and then to prepare before the information. If I'm reading, if I'm speaking freely, sometimes I'm getting lost in as I was.
Well, so I'll corral you here. What are a couple more towns on the Peloponnese that you think are really nice to visit?
Well, I mean, a very beautiful one and particular is Monemvasia. And then, yes, now I learned, I will write it down and send you the link. And it's not as near as Nafplio, Monen. It's a couple of hours driving more, but it's a small village city, basically hidden behind a rock, and this rock is on the sea. So and there are no cars over there. Of course, nowadays this town lives from tourism, but the atmosphere especially if you can sleep over there and not going only during the daytime. It's fantastic. But on the other hand, I mean, talking still about Peloponnese, a very nice city is Kalamata as well. I mean, of course, it's kind of big city for the Peloponnese, but they have this kind of very long. Sorry, Kalamata. There is also an airport. I guess is a regional. It's connected in Europe, but not overseas. There is a very nice historical center, and then there is all the part along the sea, which is very modern, but it's very long and it's bright and lively, and you see a lot of Greek people. A lot of Greek people do a holiday there, so it's there are tourists, but less from abroad and more local tourists, and they are very friendly. There are a lot of tavernas on the beach and cafes and boat excursions starting from there. A lot of beaches, not the most beautiful. I mean, there are nice beaches, but I mean, not the one you're putting on Instagram with no people on there, just nature. That's not, but very good beaches to have fun with the kids or with the friends and having a swim. Okay, but just to give you a couple of other and one other area, I would say, because there is not only one city. I will give you the bigger village in this area, which is called Mani, is the region, is one of the, if you're looking to the map, you will see the Peloponnese looks like a hand, basically. I don't know which out, and it's not the last finger, but the one before, and it's called Mani. There is also a brilliant book from an English writer, Patrick Lee Fermor. Mani is the book. There is a lot of history about the region and about Greece, and the region. It's very harsh. It's dry. It's not easy. There are no spaces for agriculture. So basically, our ships rock